With us as well to discuss the objectives and planning as well as the expected impact of the conference is Dr. Waheed Olagunju. He is a member of the 2027 ADC National Organizing Committee and chairman of the program subcommittee as well. He also plays a key role in shaping the conference program, aligning it with national and global best practices. Dr. Olagunju, thank you so much for joining us on the news. I have to ask, the theme of the 2027 Annual Directors Conference is Building Sustainable and Inclusive Enterprises. How does this theme influence the structure and focus of the sessions you helped design?
Thank you very much for having me. I'm hearing some music in the background. Can the music please go down? Well, talking about the theme of the program, of the conference, leading through change, building sustainable and inclusive enterprises. We all know that the Nigerian economy is currently being reformed. We are going through the most fundamental reforms that have ever been undertaken in this country. And incidentally, in the last 40 years, I've been both an observant and a participant in the economic transformation of Nigeria. And at the heart of the transformation is that the private sector should play a leading role in the process, while the government's supposed to put in place the enabling environment and the other facilities that private sector needs to thrive. So talking about the specific thing, building sustainable and inclusive enterprises, what that speaks to is that all enterprises, be they micro, small, medium, or large, should embrace sustainability. That means that they need to be viable, they need to be ESG compliant, and ESG talks about environment, sustainability, and governance. Once you get the governance right, which is at the core of what we do of the Chartered Institute of Directors, most likely other things would fall in place, because how enterprises are managed, how they are governed is very, very key. Talking about mobilizing the resources they require to function, which includes the human resources. And that was why at today's session, directors were told that the most important function they need to perform is to ensure that they put the right management in place. There is no way, it's true that board of directors take overall responsibility for how organizations are run, but then they cannot be involved in the day-to-day process. So their major responsibility is to ensure that they put the right management in place that will do the right thing, that would ensure that we lead through foresight, we invest in resilience, and also making adaptability our competitive edge. Examples were cited of companies in Nigeria that over the last 10 years had invested heavily in resilience and who had also had foresight. That was why they were able to adapt properly to the various shocks.
Yeah.
Not only in Nigeria,
right,
but globally. They talked about the COVID-19 that nobody anticipated, the Russia-Ukraine war, the situation in Gaza. These are, they had far-reaching implications on businesses in Nigeria that couldn't have been anticipated by anybody. So the message here is that we should continue to build institutional capacity such that whenever changes come, no matter how ferocious they are, we should be able to adapt and survive and also thrive. Because there is no way we can anticipate all the risks, but you can continue to invest in the organization, build your capacity, ensure that it's resilience, such that whenever changes come, changes will always happen. You are never able to anticipate or predict the nature of those changes. Risks are also prevalent in the environment. So you must put in place measures and steps that will ensure that when those risks crystallize, they will not lead to fatal consequences for the corporate entity, so that they'll be able to thrive no matter the situation. And practical examples were cited in the manufacturing sector and in the banking sector in Nigeria.
All right. Very quickly, Les, you were talking about just a synergy between, government willingness or political will as much as, the corporate governance side of it. Was there any conversation about synergy, or was there, representation from the government part when it comes to aiding the directors as regards sustainability and resilience for corporate progression in Nigeria?
All the speeches we had during the opening ceremony ticked all the boxes. The president was represented by the Honorable Minister of Budget and Planning, His Excellency Senator Atiku Bagudu. We also had the Minister of Education, and they also spoke very, very well. The president saw the cooperation of the private sector and institute in government's efforts at transforming the economy and ensuring that we're able to meet all the targets that have been set by governments under, for example, Nigeria Agenda 2050, which is Nigeria's master development plan between now and 2050. That is what is guiding the various development plans, as well as the budgets of the federal government, as well as the subnational governments as well. Private sector organizations have key roles to play in the achievement of these targets. And if you look at most of the development plans, about 85% of the resources required to implement those plans are supposed to come from the private sector. Only 15% comes from the government. That is the national and subnational governments. So the private sector have important roles to play. But then, for them to be able to mobilize those resources, government must put in place the right policies and the right environment. Because investors look at the policies, they look at the environment, and most of the initiatives that have succeeded in the last few decades have been driven by policy. Look at the telecom sector. It was when we deregulated, when we opened up the sector, and we had a good regulatory body in the National Communications Commission that were able to attract billions of dollars into that sector. And today we're reaping the fruits of those kind of policies. We also had the cement policy that was put in place in 2022. And by 2012, 10, 15 years down the line, Nigeria became a net exporter of cement. So that's the relationship between policies and investments and developments in the private sector. And the president did give assurance that the government will always ensure the right policies are in place and that the private sector will continue to work with the government in implementing these policies. The Minister of Education also called for the support of the Chartered Institute of Directors. So they have the theoretical skills, they have the theoretical knowledge, but they don't have the governance. They don't have the practical governance skills required, in government and in the various tertiary institutions. So he called for direct collaboration between the Chartered Institute of Directors as well as the Federal Ministry of Education and then Nigeria's various tertiary institutions. So that handshake was quite evident today between government and the private sector. And of course, the conference chairman, Dr. F.CIoD Usman, is somebody who is also the chairman of the Ministry of Finance Incorporated. And he's saying that corporate governance is what they're trying to strengthen most of the government-owned enterprises, because governance is key for them to be able to achieve their objectives. Dr. F.CIoD Usman, he used to be at the Central Bank of Nigeria, deputy governor, and Nigeria's longest-serving minister, former Minister of Finance, and then later became the Minister of National Planning. So he's currently the chairman of the Ministry of Finance Incorporated. They manage the federal government's equity investments in most of the state-owned enterprises. So there was that handshake between government and private. And of course, tomorrow evening, we're going to have a dinner, Government Meets Business, where there'll be greater interaction between government officials and private sector leaders.
I must say thank you for taking out the time to join us, sir. Mr. Waheed Olagunju, he is the chairman, program subcommittee of the National Organizing Committee as the conference for the Institute of Directors converge in Abuja for the annual conference. Once again, thank you so much, sir, for joining us.